Most gardeners who want to, make money from plants are growing the same overcrowded crops as everyone else. Tomatoes, sucuma, lettuce, peppers. Then they wonder why the market price crashes the exact week they harvest. The mistake isn't poor growing skills, it's poor crop selection. When you grow what everybody else grows, you compete on price. And price competition is a race to the bottom that slowly kills profitability in an otherwise healthy garden. If you're serious about turning a garden into a high-income asset, you don't chase volume, you chase margin. And margin comes from crops that are either hard to grow well, misunderstood, or just not yet mainstream in your region. That's what we're covering today. 14 profitable plants that almost nobody around you is growing properly. And if you're new here on Farm Logic, subscribe now because this channel is about growing better food and building real soil wealth, not hobby gardening. Before we even talk plants, understand this. Profitability starts underground. The difference between average yields and premium yields is microbial life. I've tested sterile compost versus inoculated compost in raised beds and hydroponic transition systems, and, honestly, the difference in root mass alone was obvious within 3 weeks. I've been using the TeraGanix EM1 microbial inoculant and Bokashi Bran bundle in my soil and compost systems to accelerate breakdown and build active biology. It's not magic, it's microbiology. If you want to check it out, the link is in the description. I only recommend inputs that actually change plant performance. Saffron is one of the highest value crops you can grow in a small space if you treat it like a precision crop. Saffron comes from Crocus sativus, and most people assume it needs massive acreage. It doesn't. You can grow it in raised beds 20 to 25 centimeters deep with extremely well-drained sandy loam. Plant corms 10 centimeters deep, spaced 10 centimeters apart. 1 square meter can hold about 100 corms. Each flower produces 3 stigmas. You need roughly 150 to 170 flowers for 1 gram of dried saffron. That sounds small, until you realize high-quality saffron sells by the gram at premium pricing. The real key is dry summers and controlled irrigation. Overwater it and you rot the corms. Treat it like garlic with stricter drainage and you're in business. Wasabi is misunderstood and rarely grown correctly. Real Wasabi japonica is not the green paste most people eat. It demands cool temperatures between 8 and 20 degrees Celsius and consistent moisture without waterlogging. I've grown it in shaded hydroponic channels with constant trickle flow. The trick is high oxygen at the root zone, EC around 1.2 to 1.5, pH 6.2. It takes patience, often 12 to 18 months to mature rhizomes, but chefs pay heavily for authentic roots. You're not competing with supermarket produce here. You're supplying restaurants directly. Ginseng rewards patience, not impatience. Panax ginseng grown under artificial shade cloth at 70 to 80% shade can fetch serious income if you manage fungal pressure correctly. Soil must be loose, high in leaf mold, and never compacted. This is where fermented compost makes a difference. I use Bokashi pre-treated compost, burying it 10 to 15 centimeters deep weeks before transplanting seedlings. It stabilizes nutrient release and reduces pathogen spikes. Ginseng is a 4 to 6 year crop, but it's a land banking strategy, not a quick flip. Microgreens are not new, but most growers are doing them cheaply and selling cheaply. The profit is in specialization. Purple radish, amaranth, shiso and pea shoots for high-end restaurants grow in shallow trays with 2 to 3 centimeters of fine compost blended with cocoa coir at a 60 to 40 ratio. Bottom water only. Harvest at cotyledon stage in 8 to 12 days. I've tested sterile media versus microbially active compost and found better flavor intensity and shelf life in the biologically active batches. Vanilla is rarely grown outside tropical regions, but in warm climates with 60 to 80% humidity and filtered light, vanilla planifolia vines can climb living supports like gliricidia or shade structures. Hand pollination is required within hours of bloom. That's labor, yes, but that's also your competitive barrier. Each mature vine can produce multiple pods, and cured vanilla is one of the most valuable spices globally. Moringa is treated as a backyard tree, but high-density moringa leaf production is where the money is. Plant at 10 centimeters spacing in rows, cut back aggressively every 30 to 45 days. Leaves regrow fast. Dry them at low temperatures under shade and grind into powder. Nutrient density cells. The mistake is letting trees grow tall. Keep them in vegetative production mode. Specialty mushrooms like lion's mane and oyster varieties really do outperform button mushrooms in niche markets. You'll want to grow them in pasteurized straw or hardwood sawdust blocks, and, well, you have to maintain about 80 to 90% humidity with plenty of fresh air exchange. Lion's mane in particular fruits beautifully when carbon dioxide is kept below 800 parts per million. High-end buyers absolutely love it. The best part? You don't need acres of land, just a controlled space. Now, turmeric and ginger become premium crops when you grow them for fresh, organic, chemical-free markets. Plant those seed rhizomes 5 to 7 centimeters deep in loose, compost-rich soil. They're heavy feeders, so I like to incorporate fermented compost about 2 weeks before planting, and then side dress with a diluted EM1 solution at roughly 1 to 500 every 3 weeks during vegetative growth. You'll notice thicker rhizomes and a much stronger aroma. Specialty peppers like Carolina Reaper or rare heirloom varieties. They create these small but loyal markets. Don't try to mass produce unless you've got contracts lined up. Grow them in raised beds with 45 centimeter spacing. Use heavy compost and be strict about pruning for airflow. Remember, capsaicin content actually increases under moderate stress, not from overwatering. Heritage garlic varieties outperform the generic supermarket types every time. Plant those cloves 5 centimeters deep and 15 centimeters apart. Hardneck varieties, by the way, fetch more from chefs. Make sure to cure them properly in a ventilated area at 20 to 25 degrees Celsius for about 2 weeks. It's the depth of flavor that sells. Now, medicinal herbs like ashwagandha, holy basil, and chamomile are seeing rising demand. Ashwagandha prefers sandy loam and moderate fertility. Too much nitrogen will actually reduce root potency. Sometimes less feeding produces a more valuable crop. Bamboo shoots are honestly overlooked in many regions. Clumping bamboo varieties give you edible shoots that can sell quite well in specialty markets. Be sure to space them correctly because, well, bamboo spreads aggressively. Manage it intentionally or you'll regret it later. Edible flowers like nasturtium, calendula, and borage are high-margin additions too. Restaurants will pay for both color and flavor. Always grow them in pesticide-free systems only. Harvest early in the morning and keep them refrigerated at 4 degrees Celsius right away. And finally, high-quality seedlings themselves are a crop. Strong transplants grown in biologically active media consistently outperform weak, over-fertilized ones. I inoculate my seed starting mix lightly and avoid synthetic starter fertilizers. Thick stems, dense roots, and hardened-off plants really do sell themselves. Now here's the reality nobody really says out loud. None of these plants will make you a millionaire by themselves. The wealth comes from stacking margins, high-value crops, direct marketing, and living soil systems that reduce your input costs. If your soil is dead, your margins shrink because you're always buying fertilizers just to compensate. That's why I keep emphasizing microbial systems. Whether you're fermenting kitchen scraps with Bokashi Bran or diluting EM1 into your irrigation water, active biology reduces waste and improves nutrient cycling. I've buried fermented food waste 10 to 20 centimeters deep in beds and planted 2 weeks later with absolutely zero odor and explosive growth. That's efficiency, And if you want to try that system, again, the product link is in the description. The gardeners who build wealth aren't the ones chasing trends, they're the ones building systems that compound, perennial crops, specialty markets, soil that gets better every season instead of worse. That's the difference between gardening and agricultural strategy. If this kind of practical, tested information is what you want more of, subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who's serious about growing real food profitably. The goal here isn't just bigger harvests, it's smarter harvests. And honestly, smarter growers always win.